maybe they don't know where to
daily.
start. Maybe that's what it is.
That's true.
I
Yeah,
think I think they want to do it. They just don't know where to start because you're not getting this info from any best practice group or guru. Where do you start, right? There's a formula all of them use, and it's the same formula. And I'm sorry, that formula is archaic and no longer valid. Your business needs to move in a totally different direction. The best practices groups are further behind than you are in their methodology. I want to welcome everybody to the No BS show with Billy and Landon. We're so happy to see you or have you listen to us today. Thanks for following us and subscribing. We really appreciate the show is really taken off. We get so many nice messages. I just want to thank everyone that just sends us all these nice messages of how we really are helping them to think about their businesses in a different way. And I sent a really nice message over to Landon this morning to help wake him up because he's on West Coast time. And right now it's around 9 o'clock in the morning for me and 7 a.m. for him. He got up for everybody this morning to do this show, but I sent him a really nice message from one of our listeners to wake him up. And so how are you doing
That's what fires me up, baby. That's what fires me up. I'm going to start the show with a little howdy, y'all. Is that what they say there in Texas, Billy? Howdy?
Yes, sir. It's all about y'all.
Howdy.
Yep. How do y'all do it over there in California?
Oh, man, it's beautiful. It's nice. It's, extra liberal today, so it's great.
Oh, man. Sounds to me like Canada went the California way.
Oh, I know. I was absolutely shocked. I mean, not that this is a show about politics, but man, I like everything you go from that weird, wannabe dictator guy that's taken him completely the wrong direction for years. And, he resigns because he's so unpopular. So you just think that it's going to go the opposite way, right? Just kind of like, Newsom here gets recalled and he's going to, you think that maybe he'll just step aside because nobody likes him. But nope, you just, vote it right back in.
No, they'll vote him in, make him a president, possibly.
It's crazy.
Oh, I know. Crazy. Yeah, complain about all the regulations and taxes and everything, and then ask for more.
Yeah.
Pretty funny. Oh, well, that's a whole nother podcast.
I wish we could run our businesses the way that like if we could just do exactly what everybody hates and figure out a way to spin it and just be just super successful. That would be fantastic.
Yeah. Well, fortunately, we're not in that game. You have to have thick skin for that game. That's a game I don't want anything to do with. I'll be honest with you.
But it that kind of does roll into the topic for today, though, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about
bottlenecks.
Bottlenecks. What do you why are some people achieving? Why are some people like remarkably successful? Why are other people just continuously stuck and have been in the game for sometimes decades and haven't been able to scale and maybe accomplish what they want with their business? Like what's the difference? What give us your magic wisdom, Billy? What's keeping these people from achieving some of the things that others have achieved?
Well, I'll tell you what, there's two things for sure. And I don't want anybody to be offended with this, with what I'm fixing to say here, but this is what we do on the show.
It's another Texas word, fixing. We got howdy y'all and fixing already.
There you go. I tell you what, it's getting your business back. Being the leader of your company is the number one issue I see. We allow the business to be the leader. The people that work in the business, managers in the office, things like that, are the ones that are running the business when the owners are technically not there pushing the business forward. They get comfortable. Or it's the other opposite effect of that, micromanaging, where the owner just won't let go. Yep. And so it's either lack of leadership or over leadership. Or maybe it's lack of leadership and over micromanaging. And so therefore that you're not leading that way either, right? Because to be a leader, you have to release duties and teach and mentor and manage, right? And none of these things are happening in either situation. So you've got the contractor that, has gotten comfortable, and then or maybe scared to do anything because he don't want to rock the boat. He's not making any money. It's the same old, same old. And then when he tries to make a change, he gets pushback from his employees, and he buckles.
Yeah.
I see that. That's the
I
big.
think I think what you just said, everybody listening at some point can has or is relating to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the other stifler of growth is a micromanager who just won't get out of the way and let people move forward. And maybe that's because there's reasons for that. Let's talk about why people micromanage. Number one, you have control freaks. That's one way of doing it. They want to control everything. Number two, they're not hiring the people that can move the business forward. They're promoting someone that's from within that doesn't have the skills or ever done that job before. I think that's a big one right there. We're not promoting the right people to move the business forward. And then lack of transparency about how a business operates and what the costs are and what we have to do to make a profitable business. And so I would call that the third one, because these leaders aren't very aware of their financial, anything about the finances. Just going to put it as simple as possible. Their ability to understand dollars and cents has never been taught to them. And they go in these best practice groups, and the best practice groups are saying, you got to be 70% boxes in an industry right now that, the big boys are going to win on the boxes at some point. All the competition from all the various retailers, Home Depot, Walmart, all these things. They're telling them that, and then they're telling them what I just said about, the new competition coming in as time moves on, right? So that's, to me, is a death spiral because you're not preparing your business for change. And when you don't change, when the industry change, you're going to get left behind. It's just the way it is. And it's changing faster than it ever has. I don't think this industry will be anything like it is today in the next 2 years.
Yeah, I'd say that, 10 years ago, I'd say, well, the industry is going to change in the next 10 years.
Yeah.
Now I'm saying that you're right. The industry will look completely different in 2 years.
It will. It will.
100%.
Oh, absolutely. And so we're allowing this to happen, unfortunately. We're again being bullied as contractors from the big people in the industry. And I'm not talking about big contractors. I'm talking about, private equity. We just had a software company go public. When they go public, everybody else wants to get a part of that. And so you create this ecosystem where
OEMs, the big ones. Yeah.
Yep. And then it's all about them all making money together and everybody getting left behind. And so what do we do?
Squeezing the contractor. That's
Absolutely.
Squeezing the contractor.
Yeah. That's exactly what's happening.
That's what there's the dirty little secret that no one's going to tell you, right? Nope. I mean, part of the benefits of scale and going public and being a mega corporation, whether it's, like we talked about, the software companies, the OEMs, all of the familiar people that we know and love in our space, as they get together, it becomes a good old boys network, and they get together and they have the same ownership structure and the same investors and the same people, and they're going to make money.
Yep.
And who do they make money off of? It is not the end user consumer. That's who we make money off of, right? They make money off of us.
That's right.
And no one will tell you that as they scale and they grow and they do these things, they will squeeze us. So we have to be prepared to fight back, or at least be able to respond to that, and at a bare minimum, pass those things on to the customer.
That's right. You're gonna have to be localized. People still want to do business with the local HVAC, plumbing, electrical companies, or whatever you're doing. They still do. They're tired of being beat over the head with always selling. The customers, that's the number one complaint. Just don't try to sell me something. Come in here, tell me what I need. Let's fix it. Let's do something. Customers are fatigued. When you go and you can chat GPT it. What are the 3 biggest complaint customers have with HVAC companies? And you can find it out really fast. It's always don't try to sell me. Showing up at a reasonable time, being on time if you can, and the other one is the price.
It's well, it's no different than that. That's the same complaints that we as contractors face against our suppliers, vendors, etc. You know, don't try to constantly sell me. Don't constantly try to increase my price point and justify it with selling me some more. Be available when I need you, provide the support that I need. Have the availability that I need. And
Yeah,
I mean, it's the same complaints
it's the same complaints.
that we have from our vendors. So it's just customer complaints, and you have to be an expert at resolving those things, regardless of what industry you're in.
Yeah, this is exactly right. And so what's happening
Unless
is
you have a monopoly like the big players, then they can squeeze us.
that's right. Let's just say you're a fairly good size independent company in anywhere America, and you've got to deal with Home Depot or the Ace Hardware or somebody, right? You're putting in their air conditioners, you're getting a stand in the aisle, whatever you're doing. How much longer you think they're going to do that with you as an independent? They're not going to do that very much longer because they're going to need these big private equity firms to take over their entire national pro footprint, right? To help them install and do all these
It's
things.
much more efficient that way.
It's what much more efficient. So again, there's another way you're going to get squeezed. You think your distributor treats you the way they treat a big corporation like a private equity corporation or a big software company? No, they're going to get favoritism where the money's at, right? If
But knowing all of these things and knowing what we're going to be faced with, tying it back to your original comment, how do you deal with all those things? And the same thing, it just comes back to leadership.
right, it comes
Right, it
back to
comes back to leadership, and you mentioned a couple things I was taking notes on here. One, there's this knowledge gap, and this knowledge gap has always been there, at least since I've been in the space, where we got a lot of tradespeople that kind of historically get in the space, and then they go into business, and they maybe not have all of the business knowledge that they need in terms of pricing, financials, sales structure, service system, all of the business systems that you need to run a business. But there's an abundance of information out there. It's more readily available than ever. There's a million different organizations. The internet has, majority of what you need for, like, you can get information. You can dedicate yourself to making yourself the most knowledgeable business person that there is, right? And then knowing that that is a key element of it, your job as a leader of your organization is to cascade all of that information all the way down the chain.
that's right.
And I've said this a million times, but if your part-time parts runner can tell you what every KPI in your business is and how many calls you need to generate and how many outbound calls and what your conversion rate needs to be and how many you need to turn over, and like if your part-time parts runner can do that, you're a billion-dollar corporation,
That's right.
right?
Or you're
But
whatever size, and you're efficient, well ran business, no matter what.
yeah, right. I mean, but that's I've never been able to get a company to that point where my part-time parts runner knows as much as my GM. It just but man, it's something to aspire to, right? So you have this knowledge gap on one hand, and financials and business knowledge is the key part of that. And on the other hand, you said that there's also this micromanagers, right? So the
Yeah.
people that know everything have to do everything, and I'll tell you, I am like a metrics driven data person, and I like to only talk about things I can measure and quantify. But it's interesting when you talk about those two different types of businesses that we see all the time. Is there's just this leadership gap, knowledge gap, and then there's this micromanagement gap. That's like that's culture to me.
Yeah.
Culture, the culture in your business is not some words you have on a piece of paper somewhere, or like, behind you, these posters that you have on the wall. That's not the culture of the business. The culture is, how you show up every day, the leadership, what you're willing to accept in your business every day, the standards, the norms, and then how your people feel about that, how they feel Sunday night going into work tomorrow, how they feel and how they perform at work the next day. That is the culture in your business. So if they're being micromanaged, you have a shitty culture. If you have this massive knowledge gap and just this gap in leadership, and you have the inmates running assignment, you have a shitty culture,
Yep.
right?
Exactly.
It's that middle ground where everybody's gaining knowledge, everybody's progressing, everybody's, continuously elevating in their responsibilities and their KPIs, and and they are excited. There's this element of just, I saw it last week. We had our national partners meeting, and we have this secret weapon that has actually been on our show, Chad Love. So he got up and he did a session for us, and I sat there, and I go to a lot of these conferences, and this man got up there, and he's a big guy and he's a powerful speaker, and he was talking about how he stopped referring to everybody in his organization as manager. I no longer have a general manager, service manager, operations manager. I have coaches, and he started talking about why. He's because I don't want someone to manage somebody. I don't want somebody to nitpick what other people are doing. I want someone to help develop and build skill sets and develop performance and call audibles and plays and just build that culture of winning. And he got up there and he was just going, the level of conviction this man talked about, how much he loves and he's building this business and the employees, and I'm like, there's a reason this guy is putting a couple $1 million to the bottom. There's a reason this guy, who before I met him was already doing pretty well and growing, and has just done astronomical growth this last year and added another 1,200,000 to the bottom. It's because this guy has a level of standard that he's willing to accept, and he's like changes part of his everyday mentality, and we're going to see what we can elevate. And I'm like, man, I felt for the first time at a conference, I'm like, I want to be in this guy's presence. You know, like
Awesome.
I when you have a charismatic leadership like that knows the numbers, knows the business, cares about the people, and is just a driving force. Like, you want to be in that presence. Like, I would look forward to going to work, and I've been in a lot of places where I didn't look forward to going to work. I don't know about you.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's how I ended up where I am. I just didn't like working at other places. I wanted to create my own workplace, right?
Yeah.
I didn't last very long in the work for someone world. I like doing it myself. But back to what you're talking about. It's exciting when everybody wants to come to work and make something successful. And you do this through transparency, and you do this through innovation. We sit around, we got whiteboards. I don't know, Tim, how many whiteboards we have in this company all over the place? 10, 12
Yeah,
whiteboards everywhere.
it's hard to look at, not see one.
And so it's not unusual for a whiteboard session to just break out with anyone at all, and start talking through things. How often do you spend time on the whiteboard? Tim works in my marketing department, for everyone's just listening here. So
Yeah, me and Cooper get in there and tear it up.
yeah. I mean, they have their own whiteboards. They have all kinds of stuff that they need to always be meeting and elevating the company, right, and moving forward. And we do this because of the transparency. We know where we are. We know what we need to accomplish. We all want to be successful. We surround ourselves with successful people.
That's it.
And we just keep elevating. And like you said, we have a bunch of coaches here. There are no bosses here. It just really isn't a boss. There's people that are mentoring other people. We recently brought in a warehouse manager because of his coaching and mentoring abilities that, came from a large corporation here in Dallas, Fort Worth, a distributor, one of the largest ones in the country. And he was willing to leave that position to come here and be a coach and mentor because he wasn't able to do that anymore. Because all of his coach and mentors were being fired. I mean, there are massive layoffs over there that are happening right now. And, it's a distributor right here. I mean, I tell you right now, it's Ferguson Supply. I mean, all the middle management's getting let go. And that's a whole nother show in itself. Why are they doing that? Well, because technology, we got to get more efficient. It's all about getting efficient. It's all about Doge. And
Yep.
that's what I've been talking about for the last 3 years that I've been, back in the industry talking to people. And so,
And you're constantly, I mean, the real successful businesses that I see, they're constantly looking for ways to be more efficient at generating leads, more efficient at selling the lead, more efficient at everything that they do. And you mentioned this, we haven't talked much about, but this concept of change. change, because the industry's changing. It's going to look different. The most successful people, and I know it's kind of a generic thing to say that, the most successful companies out there are, adapt to change and blah, blah, blah. They don't just embrace change. Like, change is a way of life, because business moves faster than it's ever moved before. We're no longer like reliant on the yellow pages to generate leads for us and, see what happens. It's no longer just a demand-based business. It's like, it's a much more fast-paced business than it's ever been, and will just continue to get faster. But
Hey,
here's the problem.
Stop
why
right there.
most people get
I want to say something real quick.
Yeah.
I apologize for breaking in here. News alert. However, let's talk about this real quickly, because you said it. We're no longer using yellow pages. Well, I have a stat for you. Did you know that overall search for Google has dropped 30% since ChatGPT has come out?
I had heard that. I had
Yeah.
just heard that. Yep.
All right.
That's crazy.
Right there is that what I'm talking about. You've got to change where you source your customers from, because it's changing, and it's changing fast.
Really.
Now, you really got to know what's going on. And so what's going to happen? I mean, who knows? But I'm telling you, the website-based search is going away.
Mm-hmm.
Voice search is growing. They're all, it's.
Yeah. No longer are they going to send you to the website, your customers.
This lawsuit right now, the government's going after them for monopolistic things that's probably going to impact the way that we go to market as well. It's changing rapidly.
Yes, sir. But I apologize for that news break. Go ahead.
Oh, so just going back to this change, I think that the difference between these guys that seem perpetually stuck and the ones is that how they personally approach change. And the ones that are stuck, in my opinion, they'll change, they'll adapt, they'll grow, but they change from pain, right? So when most people, like, they get stuck in this world of complacency, and I see it. I've been a victim of this myself. I've done this to myself, right? I'm like, you know what? I've now at a point of income where I never thought I'd been, and now I've got this, and now I just want to kind of coast, and it's, I'm really happy with how much income's coming in, and my lifestyle is good, and it's just easy. And that's where you kind of start to get stuck, right?
Mhm.
You have to constantly be moving forward, because eventually, if you're not moving forward, you're going backwards. And so complacency and comfort is the opposite of growth. And what happens is that most people that are sitting in that spot will wait until something hits. We'll wait until, they didn't adapt to something, the market shifts, the way they have to go to market changes because Google's shifted, their lead volume's down. They wait, and now they're losing money, or they're in a financial situation, and they're forced to make a change. They're not watching their, maybe they should have got rid of somebody 7 months ago, or they're like, the labor's high, or we're going to keep this guy. I like this. And all of a sudden they get themselves into a pickle, and now are forced to make a change, and then they change, and the business grows and adapts. Right. But that business will never make significant progress. You have the other people, on the other hand, that constantly are proactive in putting change into the business, right? It's a reactive versus proactive. And the proactive people that are whiteboarding and doing all the stuff that you just talked about, how do we improve this? How do we make this more efficient? How do we address this issue? Those are the companies that are constantly growing, right? That's it's not just the micromanagers versus the lack of leadership. There's complacency in what you're accepting, and then there's like high level expectations of planning for the future.
Yeah. Back to the whiteboards real quick. I mean, every department has their whiteboard, or one or more in their office, their rooms, whatever. We have a room mentality and not a siloed office mentality. So the dispatchers are in a large enough room for them where but they can still communicate. They have what they need. The CSRs, I think there's two whiteboards in the CSR department.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, in marketing, the managers, where they hang out, they have it. Everyone's got something that they can work on. Because if I notice something that's going on, I'll pull over who's ever in that department and pull them over, and we'll just start walking through it. And then how do we solve this? And it's fun.
And I know it's true. I know it's true because I mean, I'm sure you recall 4 or 5 years ago when you flew out here to Newport Beach, where I live, and you got a hotel room, and I came over and met you, and we sat there with a whiteboard for hours.
Yep. We sure did. I brought what I needed. You know what I mean?
You brought your whiteboard with you across the country.
I mean, exactly right. I mean, that's how you come. That's how you get ideas and innovation and understanding things, right? It's like when I was whiteboarding Sera in the early days. You still whiteboarding, and so now what we've learned from customers and when we learn from whiteboarding and continuous whiteboarding, now we got Sera 2.0 going to be introduced here right after this summer. That's completely different software.
Yeah.
Because of what we learned, right? And that's why, is because we're constantly working on all of this. And we do this at Billy Go, and everybody is elevated to do this. Everyone has a voice for the business to make it better. Everyone has a voice, and that's what we're trying to accomplish here with all the people that are listening to this and whoever want to, reach out to us and talk to us. This is what we talk about. We can turn businesses around in 90 days. I don't need to put you on a month-to-month deal annually for 10, 15 years like the current best practices groups. That's old school. AI is going to replace all that. That's another big change that's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be more instruction within the software. Okay, and so that's
I've
why.
always thought that the software would replace the best practices.
Oh, absolutely.
Software basically is the best practices.
Oh, yeah, that's what I'm saying. In the next 2 years, what you think software is today will not be like that today in the next 2 years, right? Or less. And so we need to always be moving forward in what we're doing. And the companies that have either the micromanager are stuck. And the funny thing is, they're either stuck at 1 million-ish or 3 million-ish. That's the micromanager. And then the guy that's 3 to 5, he gets comfortable, and he's the leader that has forgot how to lead.
Yeah,
Right?
that's where you become complacent, I think. That's the
Yeah.
first stage. And people, I've done, speeches about this before, because it seems exactly what you're talking about. You have that, 1 to 3, 3 to 5. You have these little, bottleneck pivot points where people can't seem to get past that.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, it just comes back to what we've been talking about: leadership. And then at most places, it's the bottleneck. You're going to find complacency somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to, like, when you're joining a best practice group, or when you're joining a coach, or I mean, a lot of these coaches and best practice groups are guilty of this too, right? I've been guilty of telling people this. I remember we had our book. It was called Instafix, right? And it had all the metrics that you were supposed to target, right? So I would evaluate the businesses, and I would say, well, this is where your metric's off, and this is what you need to do to fix that metric. And it was a pretty simple way to evaluate a business. But then, the business would grow, and they'd be making more money, and everybody would be happy, and they'd be hitting that thing, and we give them the awards, and then 2 years later they're still hitting that thing, and they're getting the awards, and they maybe grew a little bit, or kind of around the same. And
Mm-hmm.
and it makes me think, well, okay, well, you've hit all these things. What's next? You need to continue to elevate that. I know in the book the number says this, but you've already proven you could do that.
Mm-hmm.
So now you got to define the true potential of your business. You got to go to the next level. And so the best practices thing, that the problem that I always had with them is I joined that group 10 years later, and they hadn't updated the KPIs.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then it's a completely different business.
Right.
So like, you have to, once you hit the goal, you don't stop there.
Mm-mm.
You don't, once you hit your average ticket, or you hit your conversion rate, or you hit whatever the metric you're trying to hit, you don't stop there. You continuously evolve it upwards.
Yeah. I mean, I've said this before, and I'll always say this. They misnamed the word business in a way. It should have been business problems should be the real name, right? Business means busyness, right? The busyness is in solving problems. That is why it's called business. We pronounce it business, but it's busyness of solving problems. It's all we do. And you have to continue to be a problem solver, not the problem.
Well, I've got a business in California, and my partners are they've been in business for a long time. It's a great business, done well. Typically, 18 to $20 million business. And the GM that's been in there for 10 years has been there for 10 years, and was part of the Next Star group and all the best practice stuff, and helped elevate the business from 2.5 million to close to $20 million. And
Excellent.
did it over a 10-year period. Great run, good stuff. But that business had been sitting there for years, sometimes slightly kind of going backwards, or just kind of like at that pivotal point. And I said, well, my recommendation is, if the GM can't continue to elevate the business and elevate the employees and continue to do what he did, you need to not necessarily replace him if you can find a different position for him as a coach or whatever, but you need to have somebody else lead that can take it to the next level. Because I look at this business, and to me, I see a business that should be $50 million, not 20. It's got the customer base, it's got the history, it's got the resources, it's got everything it needs to do it. And you've just been sitting here for years, but you're too afraid to move on from this person that got you from here to here. But this is what I will tell you. Once you've stagnated, you've seen like the limit, the choking point of that, the leadership, right? And what got you from here to here will never get you from here to here.
Right.
But it takes a lot of courage to make a move like that.
Yeah. The nice thing about this, we're in a cash-based business. So you can go in to your office tomorrow morning and start making a difference and see the results really quickly. You just got to start doing it. And the first thing you need to do is you need to start leading again. Whether you're a micromanager or not leading well, you need to start leading instead of being a boss. As a micromanager is a boss. He's not a leader, right? And then the guy that's the leader of the company, or girl who's ever the leader of the company, when they stop moving forward, they're not leading. And so they're allowing the employees to make all the decisions. And what happens in these businesses is they get stagnant, as we've talked about. But one of the first things you need to do as a leader is go to each employee and have them write down and look and be very thorough about this. Go, I want to know everything you do on a daily basis, and give me the approximate amount of time that you spend doing these tasks. You want to see a mind-boggling situation? It's usually, if it was written on paper, it's usually, I usually get in a Word doc, right? It's usually 2 pages when I have these guys do this with their employees. 2 pages of tasks per person. And a lot of them are redundant when you start comparing them. And so start there today. How do you simplify what they're doing? That's how you start becoming a leader again, and let them see that they have someone helping them, mentoring them through a better process. Because the problem is, when you allow your employees in the office to become the business owners, if you will, they create a lot of work because they don't know. And creating a lot of work, and it's a weird way to think, but creating a lot of work is a job security thing. Yeah. For some reason.
And they create kingdoms too, right? So,
create kingdoms.
But what you're talking about is having a business by design, a business that is designed to operate the way that you've structured it, versus now you've kind of turned it over. You've hired these people, and now we have more work than ever because we have more volume than ever, and we have more volume. We have more people, and the people you all of a sudden you just add these people who are doing work that may seem important to them on the ground, but it is not by design. It is not efficient. It is not what you did, and it just kind of like grew out of I don't know, it just kind of grew out of thin air, right?
Well, these
And that's
businesses
becomes a
work.
heavy, inefficient business, and it kills your profitability.
You know, that's the beauty of this business. You did what you just said. It works despite itself.
Yeah, it's
It grows
crazy.
despite itself. So why don't we just put in some work? You know, the magic you're looking for is in the work you're not willing to do. Right here. That's it. That's the difference between a job as an owner or prosperity and wealth. You don't have to sell your company if you do this.
You know, have you seen that show, Undercover Boss?
I have.
That's a great show. I love that show.
It is
It's
good.
something that I think that everybody, whoever that came up with the idea is brilliant, and it's something I think everybody should do. But if you want an eye opening, not just set up your own company for maybe have a family member, a friend, just to go through the entire service experience to just audit yourself is a good thing to do. Maybe once a year, or once a quarter, whatever. But if you want to know, especially if you've kind of elevated some operators in your business, if you want to know like what it's like to be a potential new hire in your business, if you say you're having difficulty finding people, the first thing that you should do is put yourself through the process of like trying to find a job at your own company, and uh, going through that experience, going through an interview process, going through an onboarding, going through, you know, uh, most of us have just such a terrible uh, way of going about that. And I've been guilty of that too.
Mhm.
Throw the ad out there on Indeed, have a headhunter, get some resumes, go through them, like schedule some time, talk to people, just hire whoever's got a pulse sometimes. They get there, they show up, they pass their background check, you throw them in a dirty truck, say good luck. Like, I
Mhm.
mean, you don't have a hiring problem per se of, problem finding people. You have a hiring problem because your hiring process sucks.
Yep. Yep.
But again, it just keeps going back to this leadership thing,
Yeah.
right?
That's all it is, boys and girls. Let's get the businesses back up to speed. Let's put some work in. Now, there's some folks going, well, I'm working my tail off. Well, you're working on the wrong stuff.
Yeah.
That's the
Or
problem.
your perspective
Yes.
is wrong. The
Yes.
perspective of how the business should look is wrong.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's right. And so I hear you out there. You're tired. You're wore out. You're chasing it every year. You're finally, we're getting close to summer. You're getting excited again. You've just been beat to hell for the last 6 months. Yeah, it's a struggle. Everybody knows, but that's when you prepare for the next season. I'm not preparing for summer right now. We're doing the final touches, right? But we're starting to prepare for next fall. And, and so how do we prepare for next fall? Memberships, right? We start building our membership base even bigger and bigger and bigger because we need more and more stuff to look at in the off season that's of age. So the more memberships you get, the more equipment you get on the books. And now you have better opportunities. And so what so many companies do is they waste all their money going to do maintenance agreements on equipment they sold in the last 7, 8 years that's not eligible for replacement for several more years. The majority of these maintenance agreements are on equipment that have no opportunities. Why are we sending people to do maintenance on these things every year? Especially like if you sell a new system today, why are you putting a maintenance agreement on there? All they need to do is change filters.
Unless you haven't replaced the ducting and the airflow piece. But your point is, if you're sending someone out to a home to perform a maintenance, a service, whatever reason you're sending, there should be a sales strategy behind
Yes.
that call.
That's right.
Otherwise, why are you sending them?
That's right.
It's not just like for convenience. They're not just Amazon delivery people, right? They're being sent to a home. There should be a sales strategy followed every time someone is sent to the home. Otherwise,
right.
don't send them.
That's right. And a sales strategy, a sales
Say that
strategy.
7 times fast.
Yeah, no kidding. That's what happens doing this early in the morning now. I've only had a half a cup of coffee. A sales strategy should include the entire plan. And the plan shouldn't be salesy. it just shouldn't. If it sells I just hate that. I don't have salesmen on my payroll. Never have. By the
It
way,
should just be execution.
yeah,
Steps to execute.
I'm not going to send a salesperson to your house after the appointment at another time or right now. In some cases that people are able to do. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to stick with what works for us, and that is having technicians that give options. And giving options are the best way to do it, in my opinion. But hey, majority of the industry doesn't think that, but I do. I think that you do what's best for the customer through options and things like that. I mean, I'm still old school when it comes to things like that, and that works really well for us. And it's way more profitable this way.
Yeah. Having to only send one person out,
Yeah,
far more profitable.
well, yeah, and not giving up big commissions, and so we can reinvest in the business and keep growing the business. And pay our techs better, right? Much better than everyone else. We're able to pay our plumbers, our techs, our electricians. Everybody gets paid way more because we have a system that's efficient and we can spread the wealth. And that's really what it's about.
Yeah. The other thing that I think of, some people are just not willing to do the work too, and that's, we haven't really touched too much on that because I think a lot of people are. I think we've hit most of the, but there are people that are just not willing to do the work because the work can be tedious and monotonous.
Maybe they
There's
don't know where to
daily
start. Maybe that's what it
That's
is.
true.
I
Yeah,
think
that's true. That's
I think they want to do it. They just don't know where to start because you're not getting this info from any best practice group or guru. Where do you start, right? There's a formula all of them use, and it's the same formula. And I'm sorry, that formula is archaic and no longer valid. Your business needs to move in a totally different direction. The best practices groups are further behind than you are in their methodology. And if you're going to move fast, you got to have a fast moving way of doing things. And that's why we only offer a 90-day program, because after that you're good. But you got to know where to start. I think that's more of it than, as an industry, we're hard workers, right? We just are. But we need to work on the right things.
I had a GM one time, a new GM that came from outside the industry, and we placed him in Tucson. And I don't know if you spent much time in Tucson, but there's a lot of memes about Tucson. I think it was Family Guy or something like that called it the dumbest city in the world. It's pretty funny, but it is an interesting area, and we had this business in Tucson for years and could just never make any money, never make significant progress. And we turned over the leadership several times, and we just couldn't figure out the right guy to lead it to make this thing make money. And we hired this guy from the automotive industry, and he was a metrics driven guy, good communicator. And let's give this guy a shot. Kind of quirky. Let's see if he could do it. And so, I'm teaching the guy the metrics. He's really picking it up. He's fast. He says, okay, do you have a schedule of my activities? What should they be? So I come in every day from 7 a.m. to do this. I'm like, I don't. I just have kind of a general, like, you got to do these things. And he's like, well, can you work with me to make one? And so we work. This guy produced this magnificent list of like, okay, on Monday, I'm going to have these meetings. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to check this thing. And I thought it was the greatest thing ever. I'm like, hey, you know what? If you can do that, this guy grew this business. It made it the most profitable business in all of Gettle on a percentage basis. And this thing printed millions of dollars of profit for years as he ran it after that. And it was just like he came in, and every day he did the tedious, monotonous work of, I'm going to come in, I'm going to make sure that the boards are set, I'm going to make sure that everything's closed out correctly, I'm going to make sure the KPIs are adjusted, I'm going to review those, so I'm going to set my daily huddle, I'm going to make my notes, and he just went through that rigid structure every day and got everybody excited and taught everybody how to do it, and voila, all of a sudden we have a laggard business. They grew into a leading business.
Awesome. I love it.
It's,
So for everybody, I know we're getting long on time here. I really appreciate y'all hanging in there this long. It really comes down to getting started and knowing where to start. And if you don't know that, reach out to us and we can at least give you a starting point at some, wherever you are in your business. It doesn't take but a, 20-minute conversation and, we can get you at least started. And we're not charging you. That's not what this is about.
This is about getting cool emails.
Yeah. But I just want to emphasize that things are changing really fast and you need to change with it. And if you will, the prosperity, the future of your business is really good, best ever. There's a really good path going forward, but you gotta move past the old way of doing business. So
more opportunities now than there's ever been.
Yeah, it's really excellent. So, all right. Well, thanks everyone for hanging in there. Please like and subscribe. I know we have lots and lots of listeners that haven't subscribed. We really need those subscriptions so we can get this out to more and more people on YouTube and all the other places.
Tell all your friends.
Yeah.
Add us on YouTube and whatever else we're on Facebook. And if you got any single ladies that want to add me on Instagram, you can do that too. But make sure you like and subscribe to this.
Well, I'm asking, you still married? No.
Just don't tell my wife.
Well, she'll never see this. We don't have to worry about that. She'll never see it. All right, everyone. Thank you very much.
See you guys.
No BS with Billy and Landon is produced and delivered to you by Sera Systems. At Sera Systems, we've created a better way to run your home service business and unlock unprecedented growth. Our field service software was designed by real home service professionals to help you save steps, charge for previously unbillable time, and win more business. But the true change requires more than software. Our live coaching helps you understand and control the aspects of your business that matter most. It's about time for a new era of service, and we're leading the way. If you're ready to join the hundreds of other contractors who've been able to increase profit margins more than 50% within 6 months, visit Sera.tech today. That's Sera, Sera.tech today.